The Hollows by Jonathan Lee Wilson. Josh Harmon was glad to finally get out of school for the week. Lately, high school just wasn't doing it for him. Since Tuesday, his math teacher, Mr. Ferris, had been giving him grief about not paying attention.
Mr. Harmon, do you have something else you'd rather be doing than learning in my class? Sorry, Mr. Ferris.
He didn't mean to drift off while Mr. Ferris was talking, but it was hard to keep interest in formulas and equations when he just wanted to create stories. Who needed algebra anyway? He doubted he'd have any use for it while he wrote the great American novel, by the time he graduated from Woodrow Wilson Jr. Senior High School. 5 more minutes and he'd be home. Josh had been in a rush this morning and forgot to grab his lunch his mom had prepared for him. He was planning to head straight for the refrigerator as soon as he got in the door. His stomach rumbled almost as loud as his iPhone buzzing in his pocket. Seeing as it was Friday, he suspected his friends wanted to hang out. Unlocking the screen, he confirmed his suspicion. Ethan Wallace and Jerry Grimes were his 2 best friends in the world. In fact, they were pretty much his only friends in the world. Ethan, a tall, gangly-looking kid with curly red hair, was the brains of the group. Jerry, a stocky kid with a love of band t-shirts, was the adventurous troublemaker of their little gang. Josh, with the vivid imagination of a writer, managed to keep his friends entertained with his tales of adventure.
Are we hanging out tonight?
Messaged Ethan. 3 dots wavered as Jerry wrote his reply.
Yes, I'm all for it.
He had a habit of yelling in the group chat. His punctuation left something to be desired as well.
How about you, Josh?
Asked Ethan. Josh noticed he was almost home, and Ed, the bus driver, was giving him the eye. Ed got super annoyed if you didn't get straight off his bus. He had no time for you to sit there on your phone once he pulled up to your stop. Ed had beers to take care of at home.
Bus is pulling up to my house. I'll let you know in a couple of minutes. Just need to clear it with my mom first,
he replied as the bus slowed. Josh was prepared to jump up the moment the bus stopped moving. Ed was watching and approved of Josh's readied stance. The air brakes hissed as the bus lurched to a stop and Josh hit the aisle. Ed gave him the nod of approval.
Have a good weekend, Josh,
the driver said reflexively. Josh's house was the last stop on his route, so he knew the kid well.
Bye, Ed,
he replied as he waited for the door to let him out. Ed cranked the handle and Josh was free. The bus didn't actually stop at his house. One turned down a side road and he would be right there. Ed couldn't take that extra 30 seconds directly to his front door, but Josh didn't mind the walk. As he rounded the tall hedge that served as a fence for their neighbors, Josh saw the car wasn't in the driveway. As usual, his dad wasn't going to be there for dinner. He seemed to be working late most nights for the last month or so. Everything was expensive these days, and they needed the money. They had a nice, comfortable split-level home. It was the only home he'd known in his 16 years. The 2-story house was in nice shape. His dad, Rob, was pretty handy with power tools and generally kept on top of basic household repairs. As he made his way up the walk, he eyed the trim he'd accidentally broken the last time he snuck out of his second-floor bedroom window. Thankfully, Josh paid attention when Dad did repairs, so he'd managed to do a decent job of hiding the broken trim. Nicole Harmon was at the kitchen counter when her son got home. She had just made a cup of coffee in the Keurig and had a sip when Josh entered the kitchen.
Hey, Josh, how was your day?
She asked as he made a run for the fridge.
Hey, Mom,
he mumbled as he opened the refrigerator. Family photos, coupons, and magnets slid down slightly on their way to falling off the door.
Not so hard, please,
Nicole exclaimed as Josh banged the fridge on the counter. Josh was too busy foraging to notice his mother speaking.
Did you have a good day?
She inquired again. Josh had already downed a yop and was halfway through 3 slices of turkey cold cuts. Fine, he said as he walked past her and headed up the stairs. Nicole sighed and had another sip of the coffee.
Good talk,
she quipped. Nicole was just rinsing out her favorite mug when she heard a slightly muffled voice from upstairs ask,
"Can I go hang out with the guys after dinner?"
There was no need to ask which guys. She knew his friends. But she would ask which house they would hang out at. She knew Ethan had a nicer basement with an expensive home theater system, while Jerry had the newer video game console.
Whose house?
She inquired.
Let me check,
said the disembodied voice from upstairs. Josh took out his cell and noticed 12 missed texts from the guys.
Sorry, still checking with Mom. Where are we hanging tonight?
he said under his breath as he typed. The phone buzzed as Jerry's reply popped into the chat.
The woods! I want to go to the woods!
Woods! Woods! Woods!
Even Ethan was surprisingly using all caps for that one. Josh felt a knot in the pit of his stomach. He was well aware of his mom's feelings about the woods. 2 summers ago, his parents were part of the group of volunteers who searched for Amy Daniels. The poor girl had been playing hide-and-seek with a group of friends. She decided to hide in the woods and was never seen again. The Hollows, as these particular woods were sometimes referred to, were notoriously dangerous due to numerous sinkholes littered throughout the area. After Amy's disappearance, a warning sign and chain were put across the path leading into the Hollows. Josh sighed and started typing. I don't know, my mom is never going to let me hang out in the Hollows. The dancing dots came fast.
My mommy won't let me play. You suck,
said Jerry.
Come on, Josh. Have some fun for once. You're being lame,
added Ethan. Ethan and Jerry were important to him, and Josh didn't want to disappoint his friends because he was too chicken to take a little risk.
Okay. I'll think of something. I'll be there.
Josh tucked his phone into his pocket and hopped on his mattress. He was thankful Mr. Ferris hadn't assigned any homework today. Algebra was the furthest thing from his mind right now. He had characters to craft and worlds to create. Josh loved to write and spend an hour a day immersed in his notebook. Time seemed to fly when his mind was spinning tales. Josh wasn't a half-bad artist either. While he wrote, he would doodle a scene. His current story was about some pirates. His enigmatic Captain Jameson held his cutlass aloft as his ship, the Blood Moon, was being pulled into an enormous whirlpool and disappearing into the Indian Ocean.
Josh, dinner's ready.
His mother's voice came from the bottom of the stairs. Away went the notebook into his bag. Josh was still hungry, and his mom was the best cook in the world as far as he was concerned. Mom's cooking was never disappointing. Fridays were the night she let Josh pick what they were having. Tonight was ham and scalloped potatoes, one of his favorites.
Hey, Mom. Dinner's great. So can I go hang out with the guys tonight?
He anticipated what she would ask first.
No homework. I did it in class today.
That wasn't completely true. He'd had 2 substitutes today, and the rest didn't assign anything. I did it all just sounded better.
Aw, thank you, Josh. I'm glad you liked dinner. You still haven't told me whose house you would be at tonight.
For a moment, he thought about just saying Ethan's place. His mom really liked his folks, and especially Ethan's mom. He felt a little guilty, and just went for the direct approach.
Ethan and Jerry plan on going to the woods. I promise to be super careful,
he blurted out. His mom gave him the look he'd hoped to avoid. It was a look that could stop a charging mountain lion in its tracks. He flinched slightly.
Joshua Allen Harmon, there is no chance I am allowing you to set foot in those woods. You know how dangerous they are. Besides, I cannot help but think how poor Amy's disappearance has torn that family apart.
He knew he'd lost before he'd even begun.
It's not fair.
Well, you can just stay home this weekend,
she said in reply to his statement.
Oh, come on.
Oh, don't come on me, Josh. That's the end of it.
Suddenly, Josh no longer felt hungry. He poked at what remained of his dinner.
I'm tired. I just want to go to sleep early tonight. May I be excused?
He said with a defeated voice. Nicole nodded slightly and let Josh go to his room. She sighed as she speared a cut of ham, changed her mind, and set it back on her plate. 10 minutes after dinner, the house phone rang. Nicole was happy to hear the ringtone. Rob, who had been working 12-hour shifts this month, liked to call Nicole on his lunch breaks. She missed him, and hearing his voice was just what she needed. On the 3rd ring, she picked up the cordless phone and spoke.
Oh, hey, sweetheart. I'm glad you called. I miss you.
I miss you too, babe,
replied Rob. It had been nearly 18 years since they tied the knot, and he hated these long shifts that kept him away from Nicole.
How's Josh doing today?
He asked.
I think he's mad at me. He wants to go to the woods. You know, the Hollows.
Nicole said.
Guessing you said no?
Of course I said no. I can't imagine the horror that Frank and Jessica go through every day since they lost Amy. He knows better too. That's what's bothering me.
Rob was regretting even more his decision to take the 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. shift at the plant. If he had been there for dinner, he could have backed Nicole up.
You did the right thing, babe. Where is he now?
Rob asked.
He has to go to his room and go to bed early. He must really be mad if he wanted to sleep early on a Friday. Maybe I should have let him go to his friend's house instead. I don't know.
Rob continued.
Probably do him good to stay home tonight.
Rob tried his best to calm the situation.
I'll talk to him tomorrow and see how he's doing.
Nicole could use a hug right now. She'd have to wait a few more hours, but she looked forward to it. Josh was tired of being treated like a kid. He knew the forest was dangerous, but he was careful. He'd walked those woods dozens of times before Amy disappeared and nothing ever happened. He opened his notebook to a fresh page and wrote about an innocent man named Cecil in a run-down county jail. The man was being punished for something his cellmate did and found himself put into the hole, a pit with bars across the top. His confinement was boring, and he only had the stars to watch as the night went on. He sketched the man staring into the night sky with stars in his eyes. Josh wanted Cecil to escape and taste real freedom, so he did. Josh wanted that freedom right now for himself. His phone lit up, and he decided to escape his own jail.
When are you gonna get here?
Asked Jerry. He looked at his window and at his door. All was quiet in the hallway. Stealthily, he went to his window, slid it open, and exited his room. Rob's Honda Civic lit the front of the house as he drove into the driveway. He was eager to get home to Nicole and Josh. They were the most important people in his universe. The door creaked slightly as he stepped inside. It had been a long day. He was part of the quality assurance team at the plant. Countless parts had been through his hands today. Rob was ready to shut off his brain to work and hold Nicole close. His wife was waiting for him on the couch.
You're home,
She said excitedly.
Hi, babe.
He said as he put his arms around her. She was still feeling poorly about her interactions with Josh. He knew it was a comfort to finally have him home for the night. However, Rob could sense her anxious feelings.
I'm going to go check on Josh. I'll go to bed after that.
Thank you.
She said appreciatively. Rob quietly made his way upstairs to Josh's room. He put his ear to the door and listened for any movement. Nothing but silence from the other side of the door. Rob turned the doorknob and moved it slightly. He imagined finding Josh softly snoozing. The curtains fluttered slowly as the breeze from the open window cooled Josh's empty room. Josh was grateful for location sharing. The hollows were huge, and finding each other wasn't as easy as he'd hoped. He watched as the blue dot slowly creeped toward the other two dots on his map. It was darker than he'd liked. When he jumped the chain blocking the entrance of the hollows, he nearly wiped out when he caught his foot on it. As he walked down the path, he felt a cool sensation down the back of his neck. He felt a presence he couldn't explain. Moonlight filtered through the trees and danced in the breeze like some kind of laser light show.
Ethan? Jerry? Are you there?
He called out. He could hear something, but he couldn't quite place it. Suddenly, a weight forced him to the ground and his phone went flying.
Bah!
Yelled Jerry as he landed directly behind Josh. Ethan came out from behind a fallen log and laughed until he was in tears.
Holy shit, Jerry, you trying to give me a heart attack?
Jerry let out a huge laugh. Josh dusted himself off and started laughing himself.
I bet you didn't expect my flying attack.
You're the weirdest looking ninja I ever saw,
he quipped. Ethan's laughter subsided and he joined the conversation.
I gotta admit, I didn't think you could get up that tree either, but you've got some skill.
So what's the plan, boys?
Josh asked as he collected his phone.
Adventure, I guess.
Ethan said.
I got that part covered.
Jerry walked over to a backpack leaning against a nearby tree. He held it up triumphantly.
A backpack, my hero,
smirked Josh. Jerry held up his hand to signal wait 1 second and pulled out several bottles of vodka from the bag. Both Ethan and Josh lit up as they viewed the glistening bottles in the moonlight.
I'm gonna kill him,
Nicole fumed.
I've tried his cell 100 times and he won't answer.
She knew she would have to do something. It was late, but she needed to know where he was. First, she tried Ethan's parents. Abigail Wallace picked up after 2 rings.
Hello?
Abby said.
Hi, I'm sorry to call you so late, Abby. Is Josh there? He snuck out of the house and I need to know he's safe.
She said.
Hi, Nicole. Ethan's at Jerry's place tonight. Maybe he'd join them there.
Thanks, Abby. I'll give them a call. Sorry again for calling so late.
No problem, Nicole. I'd worry too. Let me know if he turns up at Jerry's.
I will. Thank you. Have a good night.
She hung up the line and immediately called the Grimes house. The phone rang and rang for a full 30 seconds, and no one answered. She was really starting to worry now. She needed to try something else. Her cell phone battery wasn't charging properly and needed to be connected to a charger just to start, let alone function.
Rob, can I borrow your phone for a minute?
She asked with a worried expression. Rob didn't like seeing her worry so much. He sat down the beer he was nursing and handed her his phone. He knew Nicole was good with numbers and could remember the numbers her parents had when she was 10, so she would have no difficulty finding the number she needed even though she wasn't using her own phone.
Thanks, honey.
She said as she opened up Rob's text messages. Kenny Grimes and Rob messaged back and forth now and again, so the text thread was easy to find. Nicole quickly used Siri to send her message to Ken.
Hi, Ken. It's Nicole. My phone isn't working right now, so I'm borrowing Rob's phone. Are you guys home? I can't find Josh, and Abby said Ethan is staying over tonight.
Nothing happened for quite a while. Then Ken's response appeared.
Hi, Nicole. Janet and I are actually out of town for the weekend. We're about an hour from our hotel. If the kids are at our place, Jerry hasn't said anything to us.
Ken looked at his wife, who was dozing beside him. He hoped that Jerry was just hanging out with his friends and not getting into the kind of trouble that would torpedo their weekend away. Rob could see the fear in Nicole's eyes. It was close to midnight, and her son could be anywhere.
What did he say?
They're out of town. They don't know anything. I'm really worried, Rob.
She started to cry. Intrusive thoughts of hanging up missing person posters bearing the face of Amy Daniels ran through her mind like a stampede. The 3 friends were careful to make a fire pit that kept the forest from going up in flames. The last thing they wanted to do was burn down the neighborhood. Jerry gathered some stones that worked well as a firewall. Old fallen trees provided the fuel with little effort on their part. You could hardly walk a few feet without tripping over some sticks and tree limbs. Ethan knew how to make a fire with a couple of sticks and a bit of grass and bark. Before long, they had a fire. They surveyed their work and celebrated a job well done with a round of swigs from the vodka. Jerry's folks were out of town, so sneaking out the bottles had been easy. Since its parents kept the bottles of alcohol on top of the kitchen wall cabinets, Jerry planned to blame the missing vodka on the cat. Smash the bottles and blame the cat. Seemed like a brilliant plan. His mom loved that cat, so he didn't worry about Snickers getting into trouble.
I'm kind of hungry, and I didn't think to bring anything to eat,
Lamented Ethan. Jerry smiled and held up the backpack.
Behold, the backpack giveth its bounty.
The others looked at him like he was nuts. Jerry hadn't just smuggled the booze. He had their dinner in mind as well. He pulled out the ingredients for s'mores and some beef jerky.
We dine like kings,
Jerry exclaimed.
You're the best, man.
Said Josh.
Yes!
Yelled Ethan. These guys really were the best. They'd known each other since kindergarten and could count on each other for anything. Jerry passed out the food, and they each took another shot of vodka.
Hey, Josh, tell us a story,
said Ethan, with a gleeful anticipation. Both Ethan and Jerry leaned in to absorb the adventure Josh would have for them.
I don't know.
He needed some inspiration. He looked into the fire, and before long his mind danced. Josh's eyes lost focus, and the words just poured out of him.
Years ago, ancient people lived in this land. They respected the earth and took care of the trees and the animals of the forest. One day, a man with eyes full of greed came into their forest and saw nothing but wealth. The people of the forest warned him that his greed would be his undoing. Their village elder foretold the land would demand something in return for what the greedy man took from it. The greedy man just laughed and went into his mine he had made. The land cried out as the greedy man took and took from it. He stood in the forest and looked at the damage he had done. He smiled as he cursed the land. The people of the forest watched as he saw a glint of gold on the ground beneath him. As he bent down to pick it up, his feet dropped into the soil. Roots of trees entangled his legs. The greedy man no longer smiled, and he called out to the people of the forest. People could not help him, for the land had cried out. As the earth swallowed the greedy man, the people of the forest walked away, knowing the land had taken back what it was owed. To this day, the land is hurt by humans. It sometimes takes back what it needs. That's why the hollows will eat you even today.
Dude, that was outstanding!
Exclaimed Jerry,
I love your stories, man.
said Ethan.
It's nothing special. I just like doing it.
Josh humbly remarked.
Hey, what time do you think it is?
Inquired Ethan. This question prompted the three of them to each fish for their phones in their pockets. Jerry was the first one to hold up his phone.
12:18? Damn, time flies.
Ethan was the second one to check his phone. One message from his mom read,
Hope you're having fun at Jerry's place. Have a good weekend, honey.
Josh looked at his phone, and it was off. It must have turned off when Jerry did his ninja routine earlier. This triggered some unexplained anxiety. Phone off was never a good sign. He pushed the button and watched the line fill out below the Apple icon. The scene came to life, and 15 missed calls and several texts popped up. Josh suddenly started sweating. What was he going to do now? He could kiss any privileges goodbye for the foreseeable future.
Shit, my mom figured out I'm not home in bed.
Oh, damn, you're screwed,
said Jerry.
Not helping, Jerry.
Replied Ethan.
Maybe if you say you went for a walk to blow off some steam and your phone cut off, or you went to meet up at Jerry's with me. We'll cover for you.
I guess it's worth a try. What do I have to lose?
Muttered Josh. He thought for a moment and added,
I need to go for a piss. I'll be right back, and I'll help clean up our campsite.
Without a word, Jerry immediately got up and started for the water they had set aside to put out the fire. Ethan began gathering their things. Josh was reminded of how good his friends were to him. They planned to break camp and head to Jerry's, hoping to shield him from some of his mother's wrath. It was still very dark, and he could hardly see his hand in front of his face, let alone the tree he was watering. He finished up and stood there for a moment to contemplate his best options. The next minute was a blur. With surprising speed, the earth fell away, and he was suddenly sliding down into what felt like an abyss. Dirt and rocks forced their way into his pant legs. His right leg burned as a sharp stone grazed his kneecap. He desperately flailed for anything he could grab onto. A thin root was in his hands, but snapped under his weight. He felt like he was falling to the center of the earth and was weightless as he fell. In reality, he was only 20 feet underground. It might as well have been 20 miles from his point of view. Josh lay on his back. It was so dark there. He focused his eyes and saw the stars. All he could think of was Cecil in the county jail. Would he have seen the same stars as Josh was seeing now? The light of the stars disappeared as Josh fell unconscious. Jerry was satisfied that he had sufficiently extinguished the campfire. Ethan had everything neatly packaged and ready to go. Now they just needed their buddy, and they could head for Jerry's place. In unison, they both sensed something was off. Josh shouldn't have been gone this long. They could tell something was wrong. An eerie feeling seemed to fill the air like a fog. For the first time since they came out of the woods tonight, they started feeling creeped out.
Hey, Josh!
Josh!
Where
Come
are
back!
There's no way Josh would have left without saying a word. I'm really worried he fell into one of those sinkhole things. I think we should stick together and go look for him.
Jerry panned his flashlight rapidly in hopes of glimpsing their missing friend.
Yeah, he's got to be around here somewhere,
Jerry exclaimed. Nicole had blown past being angry with Josh. He was a smart kid, and he knew the dangers of going into those woods. Actually, she didn't know if he had gone there at all. That was the agony of not knowing. Her anger had transformed itself into an unknowing dread at what could be. Rob saw in his wife's face what he saw in the faces of Amy's parents that summer. No one had ever found Amy. What was worse than knowing your child was gone was not knowing for sure if your child was truly gone. He couldn't stand it anymore.
Nick, let's go find our boy.
Reality suddenly snapped Nicole back to herself. She wiped her eyes and looked at Rob.
Yes, let's find Josh.
She agreed.
Shit, it's been an hour and he's just not here,
cried Jerry. He felt a certain level of responsibility. Jerry had been the one who suggested they come out here rather than just spending all night playing first-person shooters on his Xbox.
I think we need to call someone. His parents. Maybe the cops?
Said Ethan. Jerry agreed, though reluctantly. He had almost punched in the numbers when he heard it. It was quiet at first. The breeze kicked up and the tree branches rustled. The sound of dry leaves muffled the sound, but he was sure he'd heard a voice. He had definitely heard his name called.
Did you hear that?
He asked Ethan.
Yeah. It sounds like someone calling my name,
replied Ethan.
Your name? It was definitely
Jerry!
He drew out his name in a spooky sort of way.
Are you drunk? It's clearly saying...
Someone or something whispering Ethan into his ear cut him off directly behind him. Ethan's color drained from his face as he spun around to see a girl of about 15 standing 6 inches from his back.
Ethan,
the girl said. She looked dirty. Not just dirty, she was filthy. She had mud caked all over her clothing. Her hair was so covered in dirt that you could barely tell she was a blonde. Dirt and mud embedded themselves in her teeth, making her gums look brown. The figure grasped Ethan's hand to lead him. It was cold to the touch, almost like holding a handful of snow until your skin burned and looked red. Ethan recoiled at the sensation. Jerry looked in total disbelief at what his eyes were seeing. The figure suddenly evaporated in a puff of what looked like a vortex of smoke. Jerry's hand felt the weird sensation next, and he was suddenly being pulled along by the girl. Rob and Nicole both hopped out of the Accord as soon as it stopped and walked up to Jerry's house. They pounded the door loudly for close to a minute. There was no chance that they were too quiet to be heard. They looked at each other and knew their next move was to search the hollows. This scared them. What if the boys had been goofing around and were now buried under tons of earth? Nicole's heart skipped a beat. They wasted no time getting back into the car. She knew she should be furious that Josh did what she asked him not to do, but she would just be happy to know he's safe. They had traveled for 2 minutes and Rob's phone rang. It connected to the car and startled the both of them. He didn't recognize the number, but something told him he needed to take it. Rob hit the accept button and spoke.
Hello?
Hi, is this Josh's dad? It's Jerry Grimes,
the voice said. Nicole didn't let Rob get in a word before breaking into the call.
Jerry, where's Josh? We can't find him.
He's with us, or at least he was,
admitted Jerry.
What do you mean, at least he was?
Asked Nicole.
I'm sorry, not sure how to say this,
said Jerry. Ethan interrupted and said,
He's lost. We think the Hollows did something.
Ethan and Jerry had been following the mud-caked girl when Jerry thought to record this weird situation. As soon as his phone left his pocket, the girl simply vanished in a puff of smoke. It suddenly dawned on Jerry that Josh had given him his dad's number one time when he needed a ride to the house, so here they were. Rob spoke up.
Jerry, where's our son?
Jerry hesitated for a moment and continued.
We've been searching for an hour. Josh went to have a pee and never came back. We're not sure where he is right now.
Jerry felt horrible, and Rob could hear it in his tone.
Just let us know where you are, and we'll look together. We'll find him,
said Rob. Josh had no idea where he was nor how long he'd been there. He just wanted to go home at this point. Regret came hard as he imagined himself never returning to his home and what that would do to his parents. It took a moment for him to realize his best friends in the world were probably worried sick, not knowing what happened to him. Weakly, he called out their names.
Ethan, Jerry, are you there?
No one responded. It was up to him to get out of this mess. Josh felt around in the dark, hoping to find something to use to escape, a stick or a length of tree roots, anything. His hands discovered something smooth. Was it a rock? No, that wasn't it. His fingers traced the shape until it loosened. With some effort, he could find 2 holes. A little more effort, and his fingers moved across what he feared it might be, rows of teeth. He recoiled when he confirmed it was a human skull. Realization hit him like a heavyweight boxer. This sinkhole had swallowed someone else up, and they didn't make it out alive. A strange sensation crept over him at that moment. He could swear he felt a presence. At first, it was almost imperceptibly quiet. Someone was calling his name. Was it his mom? Had she somehow found him? No, it was different. The voice was younger and sounded as if it was coming from inside the pit he was in. Gradually, the voice increased in volume, and he could clearly understand it.
Josh, you need to get up. You can make it out. I believe in you,
said the voice.
Who are you? Where are you?
Exclaimed Josh in a panic.
I'm nobody. I just want to help you,
the voice said weakly. This seemed to be enough, as Josh didn't ask any further. Slowly, a face came into focus. He recognized her. It was Amy Daniels. For so long she had been lost, and now Josh had fallen into the same sinkhole that swallowed her up 2 years ago. He thought to himself that he should be freaking out. Somehow he found himself much calmer than he would ever have expected. The ghostly apparition of Amy began to glow, and the space holding him captive lit up just enough for him to get his bearings. Slowly and painstakingly he climbed. Inch by inch he made his way up. Soil and rocks fell away as he advanced. He nearly lost his footing and caught a root before he could fall any further. Josh was only a foot from reaching the top when he heard Amy speak again.
Thank you for finding me.
The girl reached out to take Josh's hand and help him over the top. As the girl vanished from sight, his mother reached out to take his hand.
Josh, oh my God, we found you,
said Nicole. His friends and his father helped him to clear the sinkhole and make it safely onto solid earth.
I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry,
was all Josh could manage. The group hugged tightly and counted their blessings. 2 days later, Frank and Jessica met with them. The couple embraced Josh for a long time and thanked him for finding their daughter. Amy's parents never fully gave up hope of finding their only child. Josh finally understood why his parents worried about his safety. He vowed never to put them through that again. Nicole and Rob had considered grounding Josh for 3 months over the worry he had put them through. They settled for 1 month. Frank and Jessica could finally put Amy to rest. When Josh, Ethan, and Jerry finally were allowed out again, they walked past the entrance of the hollows. Ethan and Jerry both shivered. However, Josh smiled, knowing that Amy Daniels was finally home.
Branches cracking under my shoes. Air feels colder, heart feels used.
The Hollows, written by Jonathan Lee Wilson. Narrated, animated, and produced by the author. In alphabetical order, Jerry Grimes and Kenny Grimes were voiced by Big Anklevik. Amy Daniels was voiced by Delilah Kolakowski. Abigail Wallace, voiced by Tina Kolakowski. Ethan Wallace and Ed the bus driver, voiced by Rish Outfield. Mr. Ferris and Josh Harmon, voiced by Jonathan Lee Wilson. And Nicole Harmon, voiced by Wendy Wilson. Any resemblance to any person or place is purely coincidental and a work of fiction from the mind of the author. This has been a Tale Teller's Universe production, copyright 2025.
Breathing you in with the damp. Every step